Hey, this is Kurt Graham, and you're listening to the Making of an Exception podcast. And today we've got Ryan Williams, one of my favorite people on planet Earth. What's up, Ryan?
It's so good to be here.
Thanks for being here, for real.
Oh, I'm so
It's
glad.
amazing. Ryan is there's so many things that you are, and I'm stoked to talk for the next hour, but you are a husband, you're a father of 4 kids. How'd you do that?
I don't know.
Your wife's amazing, Allie.
The thing about the 4 kids is, I keep telling people it's like, have you ever been to like a wave pool at a theme park or a water park?
Yep.
Like an overcrowded wave pool?
Yep.
That's kind of what it feels like all the time.
All the time, constantly. Yes. I'm drowning in a wave pool. It's amazing. Your father, and we'll talk about your kids, but you're a pastor, you're a worship leader, songwriter, and all around creative, artist.
Man, I just, I'm so happy to be here. And I think life is all about recognizing what kind of season you're in at the time, you know?
Yeah, where are you at right now?
So the season I'm in right now is, fatherhood and being a husband. And I actually heard the Lord speak to me. I believe the Lord can speak to us. And he spoke to me a couple months ago when we had our 4th child. And he said, don't push and pull about having this new kid and having 4 kids and worrying about ministry and how that's all going to mix together. Yeah. He actually said to me, take care of your family. And in this season, the ministry side is going to take care of itself.
Wow.
And that was a relief to me because, all of us walk through life trying to balance everything that's important to us. Yep. And so that was a really cool moment for me for God to say, hey, you can focus on this right now. Yeah. And these other things, I'm going to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's biblical. Take care of your family. And I think that's the healthiest way to be in ministry. Yeah. To focus on. It's not that you don't have busy seasons or times where, it may feel like I grew up as a pastor's kid. So you feel like you're sharing your parents at times, like with the church. And I always grew up, my parents just trained me to think that that's actually an honor. It's an honor that God would choose me to be a part of this family that's in ministry, and we love people. And so sometimes as a kid, my dad would say, like, sometimes you're sharing your dad because I'm parenting or shepherding more people than just that are in this family. But I think I always felt like my parents took care of us, and were there for us, which is amazing. And that's what you're doing as you focus on your family, ministry. I think it's sometimes the healthiest ministry will ever be is when we're taking care of our family really, really well.
That affirms that. That's awesome.
So you got 4 kids?
Yeah. Nora is 8.
They got the best names too, Nora.
Nora's 8, and she's like turning out to be just like me.
Yes.
And so
what does that mean?
She just all in her head, and she has a great imagination, and she does like fake vlogs.
No.
Where she's holding like a
camera.
YouTube channel. Yeah. She's holding a camera or holding my phone, and she's talking to her subscribers. And
no. You should make a legit channel. I would subscribe. Yeah.
She doesn't want that. So she's always walking around the house, getting in the car, pretending like she's going somewhere, talking to YouTube.
She's an artist.
She's an artist.
Yeah.
Cash is quiet. He's 5. He's quiet and reserved. He said, Dad, I want to work at church, but I don't want to work on the stage. I want to work in the offices.
No.
Yeah.
He said offices?
He said offices.
No.
So I said, yeah, buddy, that's very important.
It is important.
Then Rock is 3, and Rock is probably the one who's giving me like a mini heart attack every day. He's just crazy. Full of life, full
wild
energy,
child.
Wild child. And then Margot's new, and she's quiet.
How old is Margot?
She's going to be 2 months here. Coming up like next week. She's so sweet. It's surreal to have a baby again. Yeah. And it feels more special because this is our last. That's our plan. This is our last. And so you're soaking in every moment. And wish you could live life like that all the time, realizing being in the present is the best thing. Yeah. That's hard. That's hard for me sometimes.
Yeah, knowing it's the last causes you to do that. Like, this is our last diaper changing.
Yep.
Last time you're gonna have a kid sit up.
Yeah, and
or roll over.
You just have such
walk.
a greater perspective because you're realizing, the season that you're in. This is our last child, last baby. So it's really fun.
I remember because I've known you for a while. You're actually the person that called me.
I'm responsible. I'm totally responsible for everything good in your life.
Open up the door for me to move back to Minneapolis and work at River Valley. And so I've known you for the last 10 years, basically. And I remember when Nora was born, you had one kid and then you had the second kid on the way and you're like, it's about to be a game changer. We've got our second kid on the way. And I remember you finding out whether it was going to be a boy or a girl. And you're like, this really is going to shape up our family. If we're going to be a family of girls or if it's going to even out and how it's going to play out. Now that you've had 4, it's awesome. You got 2 girls, 2 boys. Feels like a balanced, amazing family.
It feels like a dream. My wife, Allie, she is the most amazing person. And I think, that's the cliche for a husband to say when they're in front of an audience of any kind is say, my wife is so...
I'm sure there's husbands out there that don't feel that way.
My wife is the most amazing person. That, they always just use that line. So it kind of maybe takes away from the reality of it, but it really is true. She's incredible. And it was always her dream since she was like 8 years old to have a family of 4, 2 girls, 2 boys.
Really?
And so there's something very special about being a part of the person that you love the most, being a part of her dream like that. And her dream was 4 kids. And so now we need an ultra super minivan. And
yo, minivans are awesome these days.
We need to find the biggest table at the restaurant every time. And I just can't believe it. Because I grew up with a family of 4. Yeah. So our family was always quiet. There's always space for everybody.
Yeah. So you and your brother.
Me and my brother Drew, and it was just very compact and easy to get around. And now I'm in this.
Yeah, you got a whole clan.
Man.
Tribe of Williams.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
I need to figure out how to stay more sane, but it's really fun.
I feel like, just watching from a distance, you're killing as a dad and present with your children. And and shout out to Allie. She's got perfect pitch.
She does.
She knows. It's B flat.
B flat. I really want to know if it's B flat now. I really want to know if that's a B flat.
Yeah, I hope it's B flat. So, she is awesome. And Kaylee and I we look up to you guys as husband and wife, as parents. And exactly what you said about this season for you is, I guess that's my goal for every season is that I want to take good care of my family and watch God take care of the ministry side of things. Yeah. And not to be, I'm the kind of person that's like really driven to I got to do more. I have to, and that's all. I think that's based in insecurity or pride or something in my life. But watching you lead your family the way that you do it really brings health to how I lead my family. And Kaylee looks up to Allie too as a mom. And so we love you guys. A lot. So we're just getting started. But you grew up, let's talk about where you grew up and your family, your parents. You grew up in Michigan.
I grew up in Michigan in a city called Taylor, which is about 10 minutes south of Detroit. And a great childhood, just full of great memories. The place, the town that we grew up in was kind of blue collar, a little rough around the edges. And like schools that I went to as a kid, elementary school, just kind of rough. But what that did for me was just, I guess, get me used to, from a young age, knowing that things don't need to be perfect and polished all the time. Yep. And people don't need to be perfect and polished for you to have a relationship with them or be friends with them. Yep. And so that helped me a lot. I actually had really meaningful relationships in elementary school with kids who, didn't know Jesus. And then halfway through my school life, going into junior high and high school, I went to a Christian school. Yep. Switched over to a Christian school, and that was almost even worse as far as my relationships go. As far as, how high school and junior high works with cliques and friend groups. That was almost harder transition was to fit in with those kids who were. What grade were you in? I switched when I was in 7th grade. Yeah. So that was pretty tough. Yeah, 7th grade. That's a pretty tough year to switch. For sure. And, I've gone through a lot of stuff in my life that has to do with like anxiety, and I've had great success with seeing different counselors and helped me along my journey.
Yeah.
And I've had a great childhood. I've had no crazy things happen to me, but when it all comes down to it, it always comes back to that 7th grade year.
Really, that transition.
You have that transition. So it stunned me in a way that here I am, 34 years old. I have a great life, great call, great family. But these little things along the way in your childhood can really affect you and mess with you. And,
yeah, it's the foundation of your life.
Oh, man.
And if you got something that's
so again, it's shaping how I parent, it's shaping how I'm aware of my kids and what they're going through, little things that could seem little.
Yeah.
It shapes my perspective on how to keep an eye on that stuff.
Yeah. And is your brother older or younger?
Brother's younger. He's a few years younger than me.
Yep. And he lives in Michigan?
He lives in Michigan. Great guy, great family. He's 2 little girls. And, we're about 3 years apart. So it was brothers and friends, We were able to do everything together. Baseball in the backyard every day. It was watch baseball, play baseball video games, play baseball outside, and then go to your actual Little League team.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Home Run Derby.
Yes.
You play that?
Yes.
Nintendo?
RBI baseball. And I don't want to get too nerdy about everything, but it's just friends, Drew and I. And it's a great relationship. It's the type of relationship we can just call each other anytime. And
you're a huge, actual baseball fan, Detroit Tigers.
Detroit Tigers.
That's favorite team. Yeah. I've known you to, no matter where you are, what you're doing, even if it's in the middle of church, you are following the baseball game.
I have an eye on the...
Pitch for pitch.
I have an eye on the game at all times.
It's amazing.
Still, and the Tigers, they're not that good this year, but still I'm very... Being a fan is about...
There's 400 games a season. How do you watch all of them?
There's something about the cadence of baseball. There's something about the sounds and the smells and all that stuff. It's just in my blood.
Did you grow up going to games?
We grew up. I can remember memories of being 3, 4, 5 years old and sitting in
Detroit Tigers,
sitting in Tiger Stadium and right field and watching the Tigers play the Yankees, and have all these vivid memories of watching home runs fly over my head, and that stuff gets in your blood.
Yeah. Wow.
Memories get in your blood.
Yeah.
And I'm I think I'm a nostalgia addict.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the power of nostalgia. Memories are certain times in your life can take you back to places, transport you. I don't know. I'm an addict with that stuff.
Yeah, not to get too deep this early in the podcast.
Yeah, I know.
But you being a nostalgia addict and always looking at the past, which I think there's so much positive to remembrance and remembering. But has that hindered you in being somebody that looks forward or having vision for your life because of this feeling? Not that nostalgia is this in and of itself, but I think it could dip into I want to live in the good old days.
Yeah. One of my favorite lyrics, one of my favorite songs, it's just a simple lyric, and it says, "The journey is the home that you're looking for."
Wow.
And I have this battle in my life of loving nostalgia, loving the past, and always looking forward to a someday moment.
Yep.
Building towards something, working on something. And I always have those two things going at all times.
Yeah.
My mind is flying backwards and is flying forwards. My mind doesn't do too great right now in the present.
Just right in the present.
And sometimes the search is all about the search. It's not about the answers that you're going to find.
Wow.
So that's the heart operation that I'm going through these days. 100% is today.
Yeah.
Today is so important.
That's probably why this season feels great for you.
Yeah, because it's about today.
This is your last kid.
Yep.
And you got to be present.
Yep.
And this will be nostalgic one day.
I know.
When your kids are grown, you say, "Man, remember when I was changing Margot's diapers?"
I know.
Which is amazing.
So today is amazing.
Yeah. Talk about growing up with your family in Michigan, raised in the church, ministry family.
Yeah.
Or maybe not vocational ministry, but just growing up in the church. What was that like for you?
My parents are just amazing people. My dad is so stable and strong, a quiet strength. My mom is like a prayer. she's a person of prayer.
Yeah.
And I think about, I'm 34. I think about, okay, what are the steps? What are the things I'm going to go through from here to 40?
Yeah.
One of the big things is I want to become, not that I don't pray now, I pray all the time, but I want to become a person of prayer, like my mom. So my parents are great, and I grew up in a very charismatic Pentecostal atmosphere.
You were waving flags.
Yeah, where all
Tambourines.
that stuff, the expression and the manifestation and the party, all of that was just built into what church was. And so church to me was
Very
never
lively.
Yeah, church to me was never quiet or
Somber.
liturgical, and all those things are great, by the way. But my first default of church was lively and passionate and expressive.
Yep.
And that thread has kind of stayed with me
Yep.
all the way through my life. And I can remember the moment that I was 7 years old, and there was something in me, in my mind, that connected to the fact that I was lost on my own, that my life was going to be messed up on my own. And I was convinced, and I knelt down on a row, a pew, a bench in the back of our church in Taylor Church of God. I remember saying a prayer, God, I need you, Jesus, I want you in my life. That was it.
Wow.
And I feel thankful that I've gotten to be part of the family of God, since I was 7.
Yeah.
And feel thankful that I never walked away from it. I feel thankful that I've been able to ask questions and have doubts and work out what faith looks like for me.
There's room for all that.
Room for all of that.
Yeah.
And I want my kids. I think about my kids now. I think about the next generation.
Yeah,
I want them to have the same experience.
Something that I've thought about. So I was raised similarly, in the sense that we're raised in the church, and I maybe now this would be viewed as old school. We had like Sunday night church, so we'd have like Sunday night service or Sunday morning service, and we'd have like Sunday night church, where it's like we're really going after God.
Yeah.
Sunday night church, And I remember as a kid, like growing up, it would ebb and flow between like, it was the worst part of my life. Like in that this happens to be the service that's like 2 hours long, and like I'm a kid and we didn't have like kids church for the Sunday night deal. So again, this will sound so foreign if you weren't raised in church. It sounds super weird, which I understand that. But there were other seasons as a kid where my endurance in the presence of God was stretched and expanded. And I remember hungering as a 10-year-old, like hungering for more of God. And in those moments of like extended worship and songs, like it was so real for me. Like I want God. And so as you were saying about that, now you think as a parent, the style and our culture today, even church culture, is less 2-hour services and extended worship. You're a worship pastor. But I want that for my kids.
Absolutely.
I want that environment. And so how do we as parents build those environments? Even though in church life, we don't necessarily have a lot of those extended times, but how do we stretch the endurance in the presence of God for our children, that they can grow up being exhausted in that, but also yearning and hungering for that?
You're exactly right. I had an early belief, a very early belief, early on in my life, in the power of God. Believing that God was a powerful force, and that he was really in the mix in our lives, and he really did things. Yeah. And, I think about my oldest. I need to run home right now and make sure that she realizes that that's true. Yeah. And parenting and being a husband and being in ministry, there's no like auto cruise control about it. The intentionality of today, it's so important. Yeah.
How did you get involved musically? Is it just something you've always been talented in, growing up playing guitar, eventually, and we'll talk about songwriting and all of that, but was it in the church worship ministry stuff where like giving young Ryan a shot?
Yeah. Again, music was always a big deal. It was always part of church. And my mom would sing on the worship team.
I remember. Okay, this is amazing.
Classic
story. Your mom, you can share the story, but she would sing like special
songs,
offertory or
on
like,
Sunday nights.
Yeah, Sunday nights. Yeah.
And the story lives on, and the quote lives on. You know, my mom, again, being a person of prayer, she was not messing around. So before she cued the cassette tape track,
would she sing the same song every time?
She had like three
rotation?
ringers,
okay,
3 bangers,
3 ringers. It's amazing. There was a lady in our church. It felt like once a month, and she would sing the same song.
Yeah.
So it's like it was her song. She didn't write it, but she like cue the track.
Yes,
and rip it.
All of it. You know, I even remember, like, I have vivid memories of my mom, like, being in the house with a cassette player, just like kneeling down next to the cassette player, practicing.
Wow.
I mean, what a day. What a fun day and age.
A little different.
And so she would get up there, step up there, and before she would start the track, she'd give a little context for the song, and then she'd say, you know, now pray for me as I sing.
The song's about prayer.
Knowing that she's going into battle. And then she would cue the track and
let it rip.
That's, you know, why not let that be the mantra for your life? Pray for me as I sing.
Yes. Yeah. As I do whatever I'm called to do. But
yeah.
For you are a singer. That needs to be your mantra.
Yes.
Pray for me as I sing.
And so
I love that.
Yeah, music was always part of church. And, you know, my parents were listening to a lot of contemporary Christian music at the time. And so we were listening to, you know, Stephen Curtis Chapman and DC Talk.
Praise God.
And I would go see those people play. And about 4th grade, 5th grade, I thought, man, I'm going to be I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player, and I'm going to be in DC Talk.
Yeah, you can do both.
I'm going to do both.
They had an opening.
Yeah.
DC Talk had an opening.
And so that was kind of what sparked, like, music, loving music. And I sang in church. My first singing gig was singing Take My Life, Let It Be. What's that song called? Yeah. As Little Salty. Little Salty was the
singing
Christian
songbook.
Yeah, singing songbook.
Yes.
So I was all blue.
We could do a whole podcast just on the old
stuff like that.
90s Christian, you know, like Superbook, The Donut Man. I got a whole bunch that are like deep cuts.
So deep
Dan
cuts.
and Louie. There's
Odyssey,
one.
Adventures in Odyssey.
Yeah, Adventures in Odyssey. Nobody's going to know this.
Man, people are just like getting weirded out right now. Subculture.
Yeah.
Subculture vibes deep.
Yeah, anyways.
But I remember, like,
somebody's out there is going to appreciate that, though.
Time doing a children's musical in church. I was 3rd grade, 4th grade. And it was like, we need to do auditions for these parts. And these parts have singing parts. And I just felt like, hey, I'll try it. And went in and I sang the song. And I remember the reaction of the person I was trying out for was reacting to my voice. And I was like,
you're just singing.
This is a thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Like a gift. Yeah.
A thing to do. I can do this.
Wow.
And that just started it.
One of the things that you're now known for today, and I think it's just the beginning. I really hope it's just the beginning of, like, I think Ryan Williams will be one of the best songwriters like in history, you know, man. Like, and for sure I think I feel that way because I feel close to you and I just love you and I love the songs that you write. But knowing that's who you are today, when did that come into your life? When did you write your first song? And when did you know that songwriting could be, it could be very much a craft and part of your life. It's not just like, oh yeah, I wrote a song, but it's actually who you are. You are a songwriter. Yeah.
I was always very deeply moved by music. So it was like Christmas, when it would be Christmas time or my birthday, you know, again, back in the olden days, you get CDs as presents. Because that's the only way you could listen to music.
My first CD was Point of Grace.
Yeah. Why not?
Keep the candle burning.
Why not? It still holds up.
That's a jam.
So all the things that pushed me in the direction of songwriting was, I can remember a moment listening to a Jars of Clay song in my room.
Yep.
Over and over again, and being so deeply moved by the music.
Yeah.
That I was just bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
My mom came into my room like, what is wrong with you? And I was just saying, nothing's wrong with me. I'm just, as like a 3rd grader, I'm just in this vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm just so deeply moved by this song. And then I heard all these names I'm throwing out. They it's just who they were. I didn't
Yeah.
choose who these people were that affected me. Switchfoot came out their first album, Legend of Chin, and just his singing and his lyrics and his guitar playing, I was like, I have to learn how to play guitar.
Wow.
So I can write songs like this. And so
how old were you?
And I was like 12 then.
Yeah.
So I borrowed someone's guitar and I just went into my room for months and just figured it out. Yeah.
Wow.
Taught myself and then I started writing songs. I had a cassette player that had an easy record button on it.
It's your studio.
So just put tapes in it. And I had just a bin of tapes of me writing songs.
You still have those tapes?
I have those tapes.
No.
Yeah, just writing tons of songs.
Wow.
Songs for church, songs for whoever.
Do you think any of those songs carry weight today? Like, will a chorus or a verse
come out of
ever
something?
make its way out?
Let's make that another chapter of the story, because I'm going home to Michigan in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I should grab those tapes and
100%.
sift through them.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, this is like from 12 to 18.
Wow.
6 years of just
if
writing
you
bad
got 100
things and
songs
just
there.
figuring out, just having the best time.
Yeah.
With the piano and guitar, just writing songs.
What's it been like for you? Because you in songwriting, you can go a lot of different routes, but in the church world, there is, and I'm down with whatever a person's called to do. Like, I think it's amazing, but there's worship songs, and I've heard you talk about this before, like worship songs to God about who God is, to encourage other people to know God better, and for their expression of worship as well, like corporate worship. And that's what we sing in church. We sing a lot of your songs in our church. But then there's also there would be personal worship, like, hey, this is a song that I'm writing to God from my heart that maybe other people will hear and other people will sing.
Yep.
But then there's also just like songs about love and songs about life and songs about that have little to do with who God is and worship God. So how have you, I think most of what you write, although I know you write other songs, most of what you write is corporate worship, to encourage other people to know God better, to worship Him in their expression. How did you navigate? What type of songwriter are you going to be?
Yeah, some of my favorite worship songs are like Coldplay songs.
Yeah.
One of my favorite worship leaders is Chris Martin.
Yeah.
Coldplay. There's just something about, I just think that he's anointed to do what he's doing. And I think some of his songs like bump up against the floor of heaven when I'm listening to them.
Wow.
They're so deeply moving. I was doing that this morning. I was driving in, it was raining, and I put on a Coldplay song, Always in My Head.
Wow.
And he's talking about whatever he's talking about, but I was caught up.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I don't know how to explain that, but that's real.
Yeah, that's interesting, because for sure there'd be people that would say what you just said and be like, that's blasphemy, in the sense of how can you call him a worship leader? Although I think he was actually,
he was at the time,
an actual worship leader. But how can you, and to your point, you're saying when I listen to what he does, it causes you to think about who God is, even if he's talking about love or life or something else. I do feel that way. And it's not just in songwriting, but in anything. I get emotional and I think about God when I see somebody. That's partly why we started this podcast.
Absolutely.
When I see and meet somebody who is so talented, so gifted, I believe, by God to do what they're doing. Now, they might not even know Jesus. They might not even be living for the Lord. But when they do what they were created and gifted by God to do, it makes me emotional and think about God. And it inspires me to be a better human. And again, so I don't know if you want to expound on
the mystery of God's calling on people's lives, and even when they don't know it.
Yeah.
I will cry. I will like go from normal Ryan to tears like in a millisecond when I see like, it's so weird when I see like a baseball player hit a game-winning home run.
Yes.
And he does what he was made to do, or what God has gifted him to do, and then the reaction of thousands of people around him. Or when LeBron James hits a game-winning shot,
Yeah.
I go from normal Ryan to tears.
Yes.
Right away, because to me, just the way that I'm wired, I just see it as that is just heavenly.
Yeah.
That's what they were crafted to do.
Yeah.
And like, that's just like a heaven moment.
Yeah. And
I know it seems like random, like a home run, a game-winning shot, a song about long lost love, but I think that's another mystery within God. And
that's crazy because it's separate from maybe how they're living their life or who they're doing it for.
Right.
Even if they're doing it for themselves, there's this feeling. This is gonna sound so dorky, and I understand that, but like, there's sometimes like online where I'll see like a clip of America's Got Talent or something like that.
Sure.
And I get sucked into watching this person with this talent, whatever it may be. Might be musical, might be something completely separate. And they feel like insecure and they're nervous, and you're watching this progression of like, and probably their backstory of something emotional, but like they do what they were gifted by God to do. Again, separate from who they're doing it for, if they know it's from God that this gift happened. But they do that, and the crowd and the people that are watching erupt, and they're like almost shocked that people appreciate what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had enough of a thought like, oh, maybe I should try out for this thing because people say I'm talented. I get like, I'll cry almost every time seeing those highlights. Like, my goodness, this is insane. And I think it's a comparison to just like creation. Like when you see this world, like different places I've been afforded to be able to go around the world and see some of the coolest cities and man-made, but also God-made like places on this planet that almost evoke the same emotion. Like, wow, it's insane. Like,
it's just when you see people that are fully alive, like just because you're walking around, you have breath in your lungs doesn't mean you're living, you know? And those little moments when someone sings that song that they're made to sing, or makes that basket, or accomplishes whatever they accomplish, it just almost takes your breath away when you see somebody like living their life full, you know? Yeah.
It's awesome. How did you step into, I mean, when I say ministry, I think it could be a relative term in the sense that anybody that's living for Jesus can be in ministry, making a difference, being light in the dark. But you chose, hey, I'm gonna work at a church, and this is where I'm gonna be planted. And you've been at the church you are now, River Valley, for I don't know how many years.
Coming up on 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years. And there's so many things you could do. You could have, and you have. You could record your own album. You could be a musician. You could be a songwriter. You could do your own thing. But you've chosen to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, to be planted, and to be actually a pastor, which is a whole nother thing. Not every worship leader is pastoral, but you very much are. So how did you decide, hey, that's where my life's headed?
Yeah, I mean, River Valley, I would hope and pray that I could be a lifer at River Valley, because for me, it was never about taking a job to, pay the bills or take care of my family, or just to have a job. I really felt and feel today, sitting here, that like I've been assigned to this move of God. River Valley is a move of God. All that He's done in the 20 plus years of the church, and all that He's doing now. And so I think that's where you want to be. You want to be assigned by God to something that He's doing, as opposed to, this is a great job, a great opportunity, I'm going to take it. Yeah. And so that's the overarching idea of me at River Valley. I love that it's people and music. You know, I couldn't just do a music thing. Yeah. I could never just go and tour around the world and just lead worship without having that people connection of knowing that family that's in the 6th row, or talking to that person after service, or praying with that person. That's just the jackpot for me. And I'm not really too interested in doing something other than that. You know, being a worship pastor, I like saying, hey, I heard you singing the other day. Yeah. What's going on? And then you come to find out this person's being stirred up by God because they're being called to be a worship leader. And then put that person in the right spot. You see them grow and develop.
Yeah.
My whole life from 34 to 40 right now is all about running as fast as I can away from the spotlight.
Yeah.
And letting people take that spot.
Over the 12 years, I am a product of that call in your life, in the sense that you opened the door for me to come to River Valley, and I was a worship pastor. Now I'm a campus pastor in downtown Minneapolis, but you opened the door for me, and a lot of how you pastor people and how you pour into people, how you multiply yourself, how you create room. That's probably, I was just telling somebody the other day that my greatest joy in ministry, even though I'm young, somehow God's allowed me to own something and to build a space that creates room for other people to fit in and to feel this sense of belonging and love and express their passion and use their gifts. Seeing them, and God's used me to create room for them.
Yes.
You created room for me, and I appreciate that about you. And a lot of how I pastor would be
that's awesome.
Watching how you pastored me, and how you created room for me. And so I'm eternally grateful.
That's awesome.
For that. And you've lived that way over the last 12 years in multiplying yourself. I believe River Valley, our church, has some of the greatest, not just talented, but greatest heart in our worship pastors that you've multiplied. You've multiplied yourself. And I love that you said your goal is to run as fast as possible. And what's crazy is I think as you do that, God is elevating your platform and unfortunately putting you more in the spotlight.
Yeah, and that statement's not all about I'm trying to get out of my job, or I'm trying to not do what I'm called to do. Doesn't mean I don't want to write songs anymore. Doesn't mean I don't want to lead worship. But that will be my mentality.
Yeah.
And I will continue to make room for people. And there's a danger in anything that we do. When we have a little bit of success or momentum in it, we can start making decisions that are based all about self-preservation. How can I preserve myself? And you start looking at relationships that way. You start looking at your time that way. It's all about how can I preserve this thing that I have? Yeah. And that's just, to me, that's just too opposite of what the kingdom's all about, Yeah,
it's like I view it in a picture form, of grasping. Yeah. Like God's given you something, and there's this natural human feeling to hold tight to that, versus what you're talking about is living life open-handed, and giving it away. Yep. And it doesn't make sense. It literally does not make sense to every platform you're given to give that platform away. Why would you do that? But in the kingdom of God, as you do that, somehow God's so awesome that he gives you greater platform and greater influence.
I mean, Jesus set the course. He set the pace for that. The people were looking for a savior, and they thought Jesus was going to come with a helmet and a sword and a shield, and he was going to be armed with this, ready to take back what they've lost. But Jesus came armed with grace and mercy, and he came armed with and eyes literally of compassion.
As a baby. Yep. He just came as this child born in a manger.
Came as a whisper and changed the world. And I'm 34 years old.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And what my year should be about for the rest of the year, I should pay more attention to what Jesus was like. If I can just pay more attention to what he was like and what he said and how he dealt with people. And maybe I'm making a self-declaration of I'm gonna study deeper the Gospels. I'm gonna study deeper the words of Jesus. If I can just become more like him, be more aware of how he dealt with people. Yeah, my life will be better this year. Yeah, our lives will be better if we just focus more on him.
Yeah, if we do that the rest of our lives. Yeah, it's awesome.
What did he do? How did he speak?
Right. This platform. And this podcast will never be the podcast of really drilling into people to get to know all the pain and all the it will never be that. But I think because I know you well enough and know your story and your heart, I would love to hear from you maybe it's over the last 12 years, or maybe it's just in your life and
Yeah.
experience. But you mentioned earlier some of the anxiety stuff and
Yeah.
some of the stuff that you had, like God's help heal in your heart. Would you mind sharing like one or two moments in your life or in ministry that have been challenging, that you've had to overcome and ride through, that essentially have made you more of who you are today, made you stronger?
Yeah, there are two moments or two times in my life. One was 2015, which my wife and I will always say that was the hardest year that we've gone through. And, you know, it was just a pile on of certain things and timing of things. We decided to build a house, which is awesome. But even when you do something great, it can bring on stress.
Yeah.
So we decided to build a house, and we were having our third child right when we were building the house.
Yep.
Having another baby is awesome. Rock is awesome, but there's just stress there.
Yep.
And then we built the house, started building the house in February. Rock was born in March. And then in May, my grandfather, who I was very close to, who was a real big voice and mentor in my life, he passed away. And that was the first time that I had dealt with death close to me, having someone who I was really close with die, pass away. And so I assumed the position of leader and pastor and a pillar, or I tried to, for the rest of my family in that time. And then I realized that I wasn't grieving. I wasn't taking care of that emotion and that grief and that pain of him being gone. And so I really actually had my first, he died in May, and then in June, I had my first ever like panic attack where all of a sudden I couldn't, the long story short, I couldn't breathe. I felt like I can't get enough air. And I had never experienced that in my entire life. Never had anxiety or panic like that ever. Yeah. And then, just come to find out that your body reacts to stress and pain that you're carrying. And if you're not working that out, obviously through prayer or through counseling or just talking to a friend about it, it'll start to get you.
Yeah. Where were you at in that moment?
I was at my favorite place in the world. I was at Disney World, actually, which is the zinger.
It's the last place you would think you'd be panicking.
That's why it was even such a stronger experience.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
It didn't make sense.
You're like at a Disney park.
Yes, which is like my nerd escape.
Yes,
where I can go and just, totally shut down, have a great time, nostalgia again.
Yeah, so you grew up going to Disney.
Grew up going to Disney. We got to go for free growing up because my mom's best friend worked for Disney.
No.
So we were poor. We didn't have a ton of money. But that's how we were able to go. Yeah.
Wow. So you've learned everything about Disney. This is a side note in the middle of your extremely painful
It is the
experience.
nerdiest. That's the nerdiest thing about me is people come to find out that I love like Disney World and they think, oh, does that mean like you sit around every day and watch Aladdin or Lion King?
Which you would.
I would, but no, it's not so much about like the Disney movies or the characters or anything. It's like
Disney parks.
Being at these places, and the music and the sounds and the experiences. I just have.
Like when you think about being a nostalgia addict, that's what you're thinking.
Disney World,
Disney. Like the smells, the sounds, everything. And there's like a deep there's like a deep community about like Disney nerds. Like I remember you telling me like you've learned how to, like there's like forums and like like community where you can learn how to like stay at certain spots and like all the secrets, all the behind the scenes.
Cool
like
I am not cool at all.
I think it's so cool
all about it. I know we probably go once a year for sure.
Yep.
We're going to the end of July.
Yep.
Going up. And the side note of Disney, I'm just trying to explain it. It's just these designed atmospheres, these designed places that were intentionally designed a certain way. They just, I don't know. They just take me over. And I have great friends, like musician friends or songwriters who hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not real.
Yeah.
So it's like you go to one area of the Magic Kingdom and it's like frontier land. So it's supposed to be like the Old West and there's like trees and forests and but it's all intentionally designed.
Yeah.
There's rock that's not really real rock, and people are just like, it's just all fake. Why don't you just go to Montana?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love Montana. I love the real Montana.
You can't eat a corn dog,
Right?
In Glacier
but I love
National
these
Park.
specifically designed, creatively designed places.
Yeah, that actually transport you
to a place.
Wow.
And so that's kind of my.
I love it. I don't think it's geeky. I think
so. That's
awesome.
the intersection. That was a terrible intersection of being at my favorite place and having a terrible thing happen to me.
Like you can't breathe.
I couldn't breathe, and I was like, "What is happening?" I was on a ride. The ride I was about to go, and I was like,
"What ride?"
It's called Star Tours.
Okay.
It's the
How many
Star
times
Wars
have
ride.
you ridden?
I've read it a million times,
Yeah.
and it's like awesome. And all of a sudden, I sit down, and the walls are closing in on me. I can't breathe.
Wow.
I have to run out of the building, and I'm shocked because that's never happened before in my entire life.
Wow.
And then I tried to go on another ride just to prove to myself that was just a weird thing.
Weird thing, yeah.
And I couldn't do it. And I could barely fly home on the flight from that trip because I was wrecked. I thought, well, this is my life now. I'm going to have panic attacks everywhere.
Wow.
I started to go see a counselor and just open up my world about the wrong messages that I believe about myself. And some people are really, by default, they're great at positive self-talk.
Yep.
Something bad happens to them. Internally, they say, you know what? That's all right.
They're pretty buoyant. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a buoyant spirit. That's all right. That didn't work out. But you know what? This is why the next time it's going to work out.
Yep.
I found a couple years ago that I had no positive self-talk inside of me. It was all negative.
Really? Wow.
And no one would look at me from the outside and say that
nobody would ever know that.
No, they would never know that I'm a negative. They would think I'm a negative person or a pessimistic person.
Yeah.
But internally, my dialogue with myself is, "You're an idiot. You're not good enough. That was terrible. But this is your life now."
Do you know where that came from? Because it's not your family.
No, it was never my family. It was never a certain person. It was never pressure from outside. There's just my number one thing in my life that I deal with that triggers anxiety and that I'm working through, that I continue to work through is, you don't have to be number one in everyone's life.
Yeah.
You don't have to be seen as number one at everything you do. You don't have to be number one in everyone's list of people.
Yep.
And there's been this internal pressure ever since probably junior high.
Yeah.
Of everyone's got to love you, everyone's got to like you, and you've got to do whatever you got to do to make sure that everyone likes you.
Wow.
And that's just a lie.
Yeah.
And again, thinking about generations, thinking about legacy, thinking about your children, my children, I pray over them every night, God, that they'll live a life full of joy, no fear, no worry, that they know who they are in you.
Yep.
And I think that's probably a gift that I can give to them.
Yep.
Is that the most important thing? Yeah.
That.
You don't have to carry that. You do what you're called to do, and it doesn't matter what people think of you. It doesn't matter. The journey is the home you're looking for. The process that you're in, the search that you're in is probably more important than where you're headed or where you end up.
Yep.
I hope that that's a gift I can give to all four of my kids so they can live a life. Everyone's going to have worry. Everyone's going to have stress, but I think they have the opportunity to live a life unscathed by panic and anxiety because of what I've gone through.
It's amazing. You said there's two pretty significant moments. One was Disney, panic, can't get on the plane. Do you remember what the other one was, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, the other one was, again, having to do with stress and anxiety. It was February of 2017.
Yep.
And it was the very start. It was like almost day one of our team, River Valley Worship, making the album, Being Lifetimes.
Yep.
And that whole process of making that album from start to finish was a battle. And there were forces that didn't want us to make that album, that didn't want us to write those songs. Everybody on the team was sick. Kids were sick. People were dealing with physical issues that they'd never dealt with all the way through the process of making that album. So we kind of knew that we were on the right path. And from day one, right when we started making that album, on the weekends when I'd lead worship, all of a sudden I could not sing I could not open my mouth and sing without feeling like I was going to throw up.
Really?
Such a random.
Like feeling physically sick. Yeah.
Physically sick.
Wow.
And I had no idea where it was coming from. I didn't know if it was purely physical. If, there's something going on with my stomach, with what I was eating, my lifestyle. I got an endoscopy done where they put you out for like 10 minutes and they put a camera down your throat.
No.
They just explore your stomach. They do that. Everything comes back fine physically. Wow. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with my stomach. I don't have a tumor. I don't have this, that. And it was just a battle of stress and anxiety. When you carry stress in your life, you either carry it in your back, or you carry it in your gut, or there's one other place that you carry it, but you physically carry stress. Yeah. And I had a back issue where I blew out my back. Yeah. And Kurt Graham came and saved the day and led my mission trip for me on a day's notice, like a spy. Yeah. It was insane.
Quickly. You were going to lead.
I was going to lead Global Team Sweden. Yeah. And I had months of planning, months of meeting with a missionary, super pumped, loved the team.
It's a musical trip,
loved the people I was going to go with. I would have been way closer with those people than I am now because we would have been on this trip together. Yep. The day before we're supposed to leave, my back's totally blown out, herniated disc. I can't stand up. I can't walk. I can't sit. Yeah. And I called the morning of. Yeah. I called Justin, our global project pastor, and said, Justin, I really have nothing else to say other than I can't move. Yeah. And I can't do this trip.
Yep. At 10:30 a.m., I got a phone call saying, hey, Ryan can't move.
Your wife is a hero in this story too.
100% she's a hero. Yeah. She 100%, because we had Adley, who was 10 months old at the time, our first child. And the first 6 to 9 months of Adley's life was the most difficult of our lives as parents, our marriage, all that. I mean, super difficult. God is faithful through it all and strengthened us through that. But 10 months, I get a phone call at 10 a.m. Saying, hey, Ryan's out. He can't lead this team. And there's a team of people heading to the airport now.
Man, they're going.
Plane leaves at 1 o'clock. Can you go? So I drive home and talk with my wife and say, I trust our leadership, that they wouldn't ask us to do this if, they know our lives.
Yeah, they thought about it. Yeah,
100%. So we're submitted to them. And it was the hardest thing, because I can't go, Kaylee, I'm making this decision. I'm going. That's unfair. But I also can't go, it's your call. You make the decision, because that's unfair. And so we just had to pray together and in tears say, I'm going to lead this trip and I'll be back in 10 days. And I love you.
It was an amazing trip.
And it was an amazing trip.
You're supposed to go on it.
Yeah. It was an amazing trip and great group of people. Praise God. Sweden was awesome. And to be honest, what my wife went through while I was gone, who she is now, she is an insane mom and leader and woman of God that I think she had to go through that to be who she's called to be now as a pastor's wife and the people that look up to her and just who she is. So we had to go through that. And
come on, that's God.
Thing. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Herniated disc.
I would never have chosen that. I would never have wanted to deal with that. But in such a positive experience, like an opportunity like that, it could have been way more negative. It could have been like, hey, it could have, like the things that we go through to strengthen us, it could have been way worse than that. And it was a great opportunity and a great moment. And Kaylee probably wouldn't frame it up like that. It was super difficult. But she would say, if she was on a mic right now, she would say that it really strengthened our marriage and strengthened us as parents and as a couple. So pretty wild.
So yeah, that's some of the anxiety stuff. And I think the worship leading, and I mean, not to get too graphic, but I was searching for answers about that, because there are points, and it was just like, it had this weird rhythm to it. I'd get to about song 2. I couldn't
do it.
I couldn't go on. And I remember having, I don't think I've told many people this. Well, I'm just going to tell whoever's going to listen to this, I guess.
Yes.
I pretty much had a panic attack with like 30 seconds left at our church. to signal everybody that, hey, this church is starting, the service is starting. We have like a countdown. It's a 5-minute countdown. And
Yep.
people who go to our church are obviously used to that, and it's their signal, hey, get in your spot, find a seat, about to start church. And there's about 40 seconds left in the countdown, and I was back on one side of the stage, back behind by myself,
Yep.
feeling so sick and saying, what can I do?
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go. I physically feel like I cannot sing. The service has to happen. I mean, there's 900 people ready to start church. And I was just on my knees, crying out to God. God, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I couldn't breathe. And what do you do? I've heard it said that sometimes in life, where you are most anointed is where you're most scared.
Wow.
And that was the picture for those months. And it's not like that anymore, but it was almost like just something that God wanted me to walk through. And so I got up from my knees, and I don't even know how it happened.
How you did it.
And that happened a few times.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a one-time thing.
Wow.
And I think God did a multitude of things inside me. I talked about like soul, heart operation. He was doing stuff inside me during that time to shape my perspective on worship leading. More importantly, to shape my perspective on just who I am in Christ.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I've heard, I forget who said it, and if I remembered, I would for sure quote him. But back in the day, they would anoint people with oil, which was in that day, like biblical days, was olive oil. And to actually make an anointing is the power of God. So when you're anointed in an area, you have the power of God working through your life, which is amazing. But to produce the actual oil, you would have to crush olives. And that picture in today's world, that when you're anointed, which you are as a pastor, as a songwriter, as a worship leader, as a father, as a husband, it takes crushing in our lives. And so for Kaylee and I, and some people know this story, is that on our second child, we were going to have a baby, and we miscarried. And what a crush moment. Now we are anointed to speak into people's lives that are going through the same thing. And for you, you are insanely, like God is elevating your platform as a songwriter, as a worship pastor. And it's because you've gone through crushing like this.
I believe it. Yeah, it kind of makes you speechless that God would care so much about us to have us walk through these types of processes.
Yeah.
And that he's the great orchestrator of our lives, and he can take you through the crushing.
Yeah.
And take you out through the other side because he has something great for you.
And you said it earlier, Jesus is the best example in the sense that it's not just his care for us, but also care for the other people that will be impacted by the things that we're anointed in. There's people on the other side of Million Lifetimes worship album. There's people on the other side of the next songs you're going to write, the next services that you lead, people giving their lives to the Lord, experiencing the presence of God. And there was people on the other side of the cross that Jesus died on, and God led him, his one and only son, to that moment because there's people on the other side of that, and what an honor that we would be people that have to walk through crushing because there's people on the other side.
Yeah, the awareness that people need to hear. They need to hear the truth. They need to hear the gospel. And if you're called to do whatever you're called to do, usually that means you're carrying that message in some way, if you're speaking or pastoring or singing or writing. And it's easy for me sometimes in my walk, in my call, to lean towards more of that professional Christian attitude.
Yep.
So if I have an opportunity, for example, we're taking a team and we're going to be on TV on Tuesday.
Yep.
Live TV.
Yep.
if I'm a professional Christian, if I'm leaning into that warped perspective, what am I thinking about that day? I'm thinking, man, we gotta kill this show. We gotta sound great. I hope I don't look like a idiot. I hope I sound good. I hope the team looks good. I hope we look the right part.
Yep.
I hope we come off the right way.
Yep.
That's very professional Christian, as opposed to the perspective of these songs that we're singing. These songs are weapons.
Yeah.
And we're going to be on TV for a reason, because there's going to be thousands of people that are going to hear Hope Has a Name.
Yeah.
And God's going to use that to rearrange and wake up and change and transform.
Yeah.
So the professional Christian says, I'm very focused on me and what I'm doing in this opportunity.
Yeah.
And the follower of Christ says, it doesn't matter what I look like or how I come off. I have the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm more preoccupied with the excitement, the joy of what the truth is going to do when it gets out.
Yeah.
That's way different perspectives.
Totally. I love that. I love that.
If you're a pastor, worship leader, in front of people, you're on the stage. If you're doing ministry on the stage in any fashion, we should be thinking, we have the truth. It's the remedy. It's the cure. It's the weapon. Be more preoccupied and excited about what it's going to do when it goes out in people's lives, as opposed to what we look like, how we're dressing, what we sound like.
Our delivery. Yeah.
I don't want to get too professional.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It's awesome. What are the, and we'll wrap up here in a second. What are the things like, so specifically with River Valley Worship, and with the avenue of the church that we are a part of, River Valley, what are the things that you're dreaming for, hoping for? And it might not even be necessarily just external influence, but the people that you're leading, what are the things you're thinking about future?
Well, River Valley and Pastor Rob and Pastor Becca, who lead us and love us so well, they've created an atmosphere where big vision is welcomed.
Yep.
And you can just breathe it in the atmosphere. Big vision's all over the place.
Yeah.
And so that's not the hard part of dreaming year after year about where River Valley Worship is headed.
Yeah, what's next?
We've got a new momentum with a lot of new things that we've done, and being on a label and doing new things that we've never done, and being on the radio all over the world. So God is pushing what he's pushing, and we're just happy to be along for the ride. As far as specifically the way that I think, I've always heard the advice with ministry is, think small or think little.
Yep.
And big things will happen.
Wow.
And even as a songwriter, a side note, you never can sit down as a songwriter and say, I want to write a huge song about the Trinity.
Yep.
If you sit down with the aim of writing this song that's going to be this global anthem that's going to change people's lives all over the world, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
You've got to think small about maybe a little piece of truth that you've read about the Trinity and build it out from there. That's a little creative process thing.
Oh,
you just can't think about the whole house being built.
Yeah.
You got to think about the plywood and digging in the ground for the basement, and you got to think about that stuff first.
I was just with a pastor in Japan, Pastor Rod Plummer. He started this awesome church called Lifehouse, and he just said essentially the same thing. He said he was encouraging us that were there. He said, think deeply.
Deeply, yeah, same, yeah.
But to think deep is the opposite of what you think it is. It means to think simply. And the deeper you think, the simpler you'll think. He said, imagine like squeezing something that just has a little bit of moisture in it, and you're squeezing and you're thinking, I gotta get this moisture out. So I'm squeezing and twisting and squeezing. It's deep. But what comes out is maybe just one drop of something. And so that's the picture of, don't just focus on this. Don't just think massive. Think how simple can I get? And those are the things that potentially, not just with songs, but anything that we do, think as simple as possible and watch what God can do. I mean, again, it's the gospel. Like, how simple was this baby in a manger? And he changed the world. He changed the world. Anyways.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to live my life, I'm just trying to live my life like, I'm going to go on a limb here, like the famous composer Bach.
Yep.
I heard this the other day. He would sit down and write songs, compositions, and every time he'd sit down and he'd have a blank sheet of paper, he would, on the top of it, he would write JJ, which in a translation of his language meant Jesus help me.
Wow.
Before he started writing.
Wow.
And so then he would write the composition, write the song. And at the end of it, he would write SDG, which is Soli Dea Gloria, Sole Dea Dios, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is like for the glory of God alone.
Wow.
So he would write
Jesus help me.
Jesus help me before he dove in.
At the end of it.
And then at the end of it, for the glory of God alone. And that's just a songwriting principle, but for me, it's just like a way I want to live my life every day.
Yeah.
Wake up
every day
at the top of my day, right? Jesus help me. Try to build the kingdom. Love people. Have favor with men. I pray that every day.
Yep.
Have favor with people so I could build the kingdom. And at the end of the day, the whole song that I wrote with my life that day is for the glory of God alone.
Wow.
I think that would be amazing.
It's awesome. 2 quick questions. 1, what's your favorite book of all time?
This is a book, but it's kind of like it's just a collection of thoughts, really. But it's Morning and Evening by Charles Spurgeon.
Yep.
Where it's just a collection of his devotionals that he wrote out for the morning and the evening.
Really?
And yeah, it just goes on forever.
He wrote out thoughts in the morning, thoughts in the evening.
It is incredible every day. It's incredible.
Wow.
It's my favorite book. War of Art is another favorite of mine. Stephen Pressfield. Yep. Those are my 2 favorites, I think.
Morning and Evening, War of Art. It's awesome. And then last thing is, if you were to give advice to anybody following your footsteps, again, whether it's in ministry or as a songwriter or young artist or young parent, what advice would you give them? You've dropped a whole bunch, like even just to what you just said about Jesus help me and glory to God alone. But what advice would you give somebody following your footsteps?
I would live like Bach writes, But for me, I would just say, because this is what I'm trying to do with the next era of my life, just focus on being a person of prayer.
Yeah.
Person of the Word of God. And that doesn't mean that you ignore the craft or the talent that you have in your hand, photography, music, speaking, pastoring, designing. It doesn't mean that you ignore any of that or you do less of that.
Yep.
But if you just get the priorities right in your soul, if you get the soul priorities right, be a person of prayer, be a person of the Word first, then your craft will be just that much better,
Yeah.
I think you have a better time, a lot more fun doing it.
Wow.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
What a joy for me.
Before we close, I just want to say, Kaylee and I, we love you and Allie. I said it at the top, and I'll say it at the end, but we look up to you guys in so many avenues of life, how you lead your life, for sure spiritually, just who you are as a child of God. That's who I want to be in a lot of ways. And yeah, you are for me a personal hero.
Oh, that means a lot.
And when I'm 29, so I haven't lived a ton of life, but enough to have plenty of voices in my life. You are for sure one of the top voices and influencers in my entire life. And so when I think about if somebody was ever to ask me a question of like who's influenced your life most, and I got to list a few names, you would be one of those names. And I'm eternally grateful for everything that you've done. I remember being 21 years old and sitting down with you and Allie and Kaylee, who we weren't even engaged at the time.
I remember that.
And sitting down and talking about your heart for ministry, your heart, how you lead your family, all those things. And I said, I'm moving from Texas back to Minneapolis because I want to work for you.
It's just a great day.
And so, thanks for being on the podcast. When we put this idea together, and Tissel, legendary producer and one of our great friends.
Very handsome.
Yeah, very handsome, eligible bachelor. We love Tissel. But when Tissel and I had this idea, you were one of the first names that we wrote down, because of the influence that you have in our lives. So we love you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Glory to God alone.
Glory to God alone.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, we'd love for you to subscribe to this channel. We've got new episodes releasing every single week. We'd also love to hear your questions or comments. You can comment below. You can also find us on Instagram at Exception Podcast. And I want to give a quick shout out to our producer, Tissel. My name's Kirk Graham, and we'll see you back next week.